Hey, what's going on, Salt Strong Nation? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be going over exactly how to throw a popping cork correctly, because there are a few wrong ways, and that's when your line and leader gets all wrapped around itself. So today I'm going to be going over exactly how to prevent that. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, guys, so the first thing I want to go over that's really important when throwing popping corks is your tackle. So let's go ahead and get into the rod, followed by the line, leader, and everything else from there. Okay, so first things first is you need a good rod, and you need the right rod to throw this type of setup. One, you'd want to make sure that your rod isn't too light, so anything below a medium, usually kind of out of the question, depending on how heavy your cork is. So today I've got a 7.6, and it's going to be a medium heavy. This is the TFO Professional, but what's really important about this is two things. One, it's a 7.6, so a 7-foot rod typically, or even shorter, tends to make that helicoptering effect that we're going to go over later very bad. You want a little bit longer of a rod. The other thing that's very important when you're choosing a rod blank is going to be the action on it. So a moderate or medium fast type action is really what you want. If you have a fast action or something that's too stiff right here and doesn't have any give, that's really, again, going to create that helicoptering effect when this is in the air. So you want to make sure the rod's got a little bit of a load in it, especially right here in the tip. So a moderate or medium fast type of action is what you want. Now, the reel that I've got on here is not as important, but I would say, just for ease of use, try to get something that's going to help balance out the rod you have. So if you have a medium heavy like I do today, it's a little bit stiffer of a rod and it's a little bit heavier, but it's really good for casting these popping corks a very long way. And you just have a lot of weight between the popping cork and the fish, and you want to make sure you can get a good hook set on that fish and your rod's not too flimsy and it's still got a good backbone. But the reel that I'm going to be using here, guys, is the BG 3000. It's a little bit heavier of a reel, and it really balances out this entire system right here very well. So I really like a little bit heavier of a reel, some type of 3000 series, and again, the BG is a little bit heavier, but I also use this, you know, for Carolina rigs and things like that, so it all works out. But anyway, guys, that's the reel setup, and I've got it on 20-pound braid, which again could be a little bit of overkill, but this cork system is so heavy, 20-pound braid throws a very long ways, and I know I've got some really good insurance depending on what type of fish I'm going after. Okay, now moving down the line, there's a few things I did want to point out and a couple tips that do help a lot. So one thing that I do right here, guys, you can see I've got my 20-pound braid right here, and then I've just got a FG knot like normal that we tie all the time to a fluorocarbon leader, okay? You can also do a heavier mono, like a 30-pound mono or something like that, that's a little bit stiffer, but I like the fluorocarbon just because it's a stiffer material, and what that does is it pushes away this cork and this line away from your braid, because the braid is what's soft and the braid is typically what you're going to get tangled in. So by having a thicker monofilament line or fluorocarbon like I do is really going to help that out. All right, so following the main line, going down to your cork right here, guys, next thing you want to make sure is going to be your leader that's going to your actual lure or your bait. Now, the number one thing that I see that messes everybody up is their leader is too long. I tend to not get more than a 30-inch leader. For one, if you're using a popping cork, it doesn't really make sense, because you want this lure or this bait close to the popping of the cork. That's what's going to be attracting those fish, and those fish are going to come pretty close to this cork. I've even had fish attack the cork. So you want to make sure it's not too long. If you do anything longer than that, I would just go ahead and start using a slip float, because it's kind of defeating the purpose of using the popping cork. So don't have too long of a leader. I typically do 18 inches to 30 inches at most, and sometimes in some situations I'll even do 12 if I'm on some really shallow flats. Now, the other thing that's really important as well, guys, is making sure you've got a right weighted jig head. If you've got too heavy or too light, that can cause it to spin and just kind of get out of control and start wrapping around your main line. And what I have here is a 1/8 ounce jig head, and that's usually a pretty good weight for me, and it also falls pretty natural in the water, so I really like using that weight. I typically do not go above 1/4 ounce, just for reference as well. But if you start to go too light or too heavy, guys, that's really going to cause that spinning action happen, and that's what's going to get caught around your main line. All right, guys, so before we do it the right way, I'm going to show you the wrong way, because this is very common, and there's a few minor mistakes that a lot of people do, but they're very easy to mitigate. So the very first thing I'm going to do is actually get my cork way too close to the tip of my rod. By doing this, that's going to create a lot more spin in the air when you're throwing one of these, okay? So first off, this is exactly how you do not throw one, okay? This is not the correct way, but I want to show you what this does in the air. Now, the other thing goes for when you start to cast, right? So what I do not want to do is cast overhead like this, because what that does is allow that lure to spin in more of the vertical plane rather than the horizontal plane. And when it's spinning in that vertical plane, kind of like this, that is when it's going to get wrapped around your line. So let's go ahead and make a bad or wrong cast so you can see kind of what that looks like. All right, guys, so if you could see that lure was completely turning over itself, and I'm surprised it actually didn't hit my main line, but it was coming very, very close. So that's exactly how you do not want to do it. So I'm going to reel this back in and show you the right way to where that will not happen. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and throw this the correct way. And the first thing I do, if you can tell, I drop that cork a little bit further away from the rod tip, and that's going to help a lot without making that helicoptering action just for the spinning. Now the second thing I'm going to do when I throw is I'm going to throw a little bit more at an angle, kind of more like this, rather than straight overhead. If I throw it overhead, just as you guys saw in that last cast, that's when that lure is going to get wrapped around that main line. But even if I throw it this way on the horizontal plane and that lure is spinning this way, your chances of getting hung up are much, much less, just because gravity is going to keep that lure or that weight a little bit further down. So it's not going to wrap around your main line. It's going to be spinning like this. Even if it's still a bad cast and it's still spinning, that will help big time. All right, and the next point is going to be on the cast as well, on the horizontal plane. So instead of going straight over like we were talking about, I'm going to go more this way at an angle a little bit, and that's going to help where that lure doesn't spin over your main line. Another thing as well, when you get ready to cast, you're not going to go and follow completely through on the other side of your target zone. So if I'm going to throw out here at this angle, I'm not going to bring my rod tip way past that angle where it's going. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use this rod tip to follow my bait and my cork all the way down to where it's at. And by doing that, it creates a lot less of that spinning action. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll show you the right way, and then we'll do it one more time. Again, go back, horizontal plane, and just like that. You guys see how I was moving my rod tip with the cork as it was in flight? By doing that, I think I had a half a spin or one spin, but it didn't matter. That lure was actually below the cork and the main line, so there wasn't any issue, and there was a lot less spinning than that first cast I just showed you. So by going ahead, casting it out at an angle, that ensures your lure is going to be below your main line, spinning on a horizontal plane. And then secondly, you want to make sure that rod tip is actually following your cork and your lure down to where it's going to hit the water. By doing that, guys, you're going to create a lot less spins and a lot less tangles. All right, guys, so that's going to be it. Wrapping it up for how to properly throw a popping cork. Hopefully this tip was helpful for you. I know it's really helped me out a lot, and this is just something that I've learned after casting a long time, is making sure you've got the right tackle and gear, and then followed by the right casting technique. Guys, if you need any of this tackle or gear, definitely be sure to check it out at fishstrong.com. If you have any questions or there's anything that you like to do when using a popping cork and making sure there's no tangles, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be happy to get back with you. If you're new to Salt Strong, just know we're the #1 online fishing club out there, because we actually guarantee we're going to help you catch more fish, not only with tips and in-depth courses, but also our new Smart Fishing Spots app that actually tells you exactly where the fish will be feeding, as well as the best times of day to fish there. You'll also save tons of money with tackle discounts and make tons of new fishing friends in the Insider community. So thanks again for watching, and we hope to see you in the Insider community soon.